From the archives of the Midnight Society, we present a final, desperate message. This audio file was recovered from a damaged phone found in an abandoned subway tunnel. It belonged to a young woman who was reported missing after falling asleep on the last train of the night. Authorities believe she became lost. We believe she arrived at her destination. Okay, so I'm recording this because I need to remember what's real. The deadline at work was brutal. 20-hour day. I must have had a gallon of coffee, but by the time I finally got to the platform, my bones felt like lead. I managed to catch the last downtown train just as the doors were closing. It was that perfect late-night empty that only New York gets. Just a handful of other people, all of us sharing that same exhausted, glassy-eyed stare, just wanting to get home. I remember finding a seat, leaning my head against the cool glass of the window, and watching the station lights smear into a blur. I told myself I'd just rest my eyes for a few stops, just a few minutes. That was my first mistake, my last mistake. The jolt of the train starting again woke me up. I blinked, my mind fuzzy, and saw the Astor Place sign sliding past the window. My heart sank. That was my stop. I'd missed it. I groaned, scrubbing the sleep from my eyes. It was annoying, a stupid mistake, but not the end of the world. The next stop was Union Square. I could just get off there and walk the few blocks back. I sat up, looking around the car, ready to pull the stop request cord. But as my eyes adjusted to the buzzing fluorescent light, I noticed something was wrong. The annoyance I felt was quickly being replaced by a cold, creeping sense of dread. The car was silent, not quiet. It was a deep, profound, and unnatural silence, and no one else had gotten off at my stop. I stood up and looked down the aisle. The handful of people who had been on the train were still there. An old man reading a newspaper, a young woman listening to music, a man in a suit holding a briefcase, but they were all frozen, utterly, completely still. The man's newspaper wasn't rustling. The woman's head wasn't bobbing to her music. They were like statues. I called out, my voice sounding small and thin. "Excuse me, did we just pass Astor Place?" No one moved. No one blinked. They just stared ahead with those same blank, unfocused eyes. And then I noticed the other thing. Their clothes. They were all damp. No, they were soaking wet, as if they'd all walked through a torrential downpour to get on the train. A faint, wet sheen covered their skin and hair, and the air in the car was thick with the cold, musty smell of a flooded basement. I started to panic then, a real cold spike of adrenaline. I looked for the route map on the wall, needing something familiar, something logical to hold on to. It was there, but it was wrong. All wrong. The station names were twisted, like some kind of sick joke. My stop, Astor Place, was there, but the next stop wasn't Union Square. It was a place called the Crossroads. After that, the Gathering. And the final stop, the end of the line, was just a single word in black, block letters, Terminus. I stared at it, my blood turning to ice. This wasn't the downtown line. This wasn't a New York City subway train at all. I was on a different route, a route I didn't know, and I had no idea where the next stop was. I scrambled to the window, desperate to see something outside. A tunnel wall, a signal light, another train, anything to prove we were still in the city. I pressed my face to the glass. It was freezing cold, but there was nothing outside, not just darkness. It was a void, a rushing, featureless black that swallowed the light. I should have been able to see my own reflection in the glass, but there was nothing. It was like looking into a deep black hole that was moving at 100 miles an hour. We weren't in a tunnel. We weren't anywhere. The train was traveling through nothingness. I stumbled back from the window, a sob catching in my throat. I wasn't on a train in the city. I was on a train that had left the city, and the whole world, far, far behind. Just when I thought the silence was the most terrifying thing in the world, it was broken by a sound, a soft, rhythmic, metallic sound. Click-clack, click-clack. It was coming from the front of the car. The door to the next car slid open without a whisper, and a man stepped through. He was tall, impossibly thin, and wore an old-fashioned conductor's uniform that was dripping wet, leaving dark puddles on the sterile floor. I couldn't see his face under the shadow of his cap, but I could see the skin of his hands was a pale, bloated gray, like a body that had been in the water for a very long time. In his hand, he held an old metal ticket puncher, and with every step he didn't take, he clicked it. It was a sound that cut through the silence, a sound that felt like a countdown. He wasn't looking at me. Not yet. He had work to do first. He stopped at the first of the still passengers, the old man with the newspaper. He didn't speak. He simply raised the ticket puncher to the space right in front of the man's face. He squeezed the handle, and the click echoed in the silent car. But it didn't punch a ticket. It punched the air. For a split second, I saw a faint, shimmering light get clipped from the old man's form, like a firefly being snuffed out. And then, the man began to crumble. He dissolved, slowly at first, and then all at once, into a pile of fine gray dust and damp cloth that settled on the plastic seat before whispering away into nothing. He moved to the next passenger, the young woman with the headphones. He raised the puncher. Click, she dissolved. He was the conductor, and he was collecting their fares. I didn't wait for him to get to me. I turned and ran. I ran like my life depended on it, because I knew it did. I scrambled through the door at the back of the car, into the next one, expecting to find it empty, but it wasn't. It was the exact same car, with the exact same number of passengers, all sitting in the same frozen wet poses. I didn't stop. I ran through that car and the next, and the next. 5 cars, 10 cars. They were all identical, a perfect repeating liminal nightmare. The train was endless. There was no driver's cabin at the front, no final car at the back. It was a loop, a purgatory on wheels, designed to keep its cargo inside. There was no escape. There was no way off the train. There was only the sound, getting closer now, of the conductor punching his tickets. Click-clack, click-clack. I burst through another door, gasping for breath, my lungs on fire, and I stopped dead. He was there, at the other end of the car, standing by the door, waiting for me. He hadn't run. He hadn't followed me. He was just there. He had appeared ahead of me. I turned to run back, but the door I had just come through slammed shut with a deafening, final boom. I was trapped. It was just me, him, and the silent, wet statues in the seats. He didn't move towards me. He didn't have to. He just stood there, a tall, gaunt silhouette of dripping dread, and he raised the ticket puncher, aiming it not at my face, but at my heart. He squeezed the handle once. Click. A silent, chilling demand. It was my turn. He was waiting for my fare. I was frozen. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. My mind was a vortex of pure, undiluted terror. What was the fare? What did he want from me? I didn't have a ticket. I didn't have anything. He took one slow, gliding step forward, then another. He wasn't walking. He was drifting, like a drowned man in a slow current. He stopped right in front of me, so close I could smell the cold river-bottom scent of his wet clothes. He didn't speak. He just held out the ticket puncher, the metal glinting in the horrible fluorescent light. It was a question, a final transaction, and as I stared into my own terrified reflection in the polished metal, I finally understood. The fare wasn't something I had. It was something I had to give. The fare was my acceptance. It was my stop, and I had to choose to get off. No, I wasn't getting off. This wasn't my stop. I did the only thing I could think of. I screamed, a raw, ragged sound of pure defiance, and I threw my messenger bag at him. It hit his chest with a heavy, wet smack, but it was like throwing a stone at a statue. He didn't move. He didn't even seem to notice. The bag fell to the dripping floor, and in that split second of distraction, I ran. I ran back the way I came, my boots splashing in the puddles he left behind. I didn't care if the train was endless. I would run forever. I would not pay his fare. I would not let this be my final destination. I just kept running, the sound of his steady, patient click-clack echoing behind me, never getting louder, never getting quieter, just there. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like they were filled with cement. I passed through car after identical car, each one a perfect, horrifying diorama of the dead. But then something changed. The rhythm of the train, the steady, hypnotic rattle of the wheels began to slow. A deep, grinding groan echoed through the cars, the sound of ancient machinery being forced to a halt after an eternity of movement. The flickering fluorescent lights buzzed louder, their pitch rising. We weren't just traveling anymore, we were arriving. The train was stopping, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the very marrow of my bones, that we had reached the next station. We had reached terminus. A loud final hiss of brakes, and the train shuddered to a stop. The silence that followed was heavier than before. It was the silence of a graveyard. Then, with a soft pneumatic sigh, the subway doors slid open. I stared, my heart stopping. There was no station, no platform, no city. The doors opened onto a bank of black, muddy earth, under a bruised, purple twilight sky that had no sun and no moon. A slow, thick fog, smelling of wet soil and decay, drifted into the car. In the distance, I could see a wide, black river, its surface as smooth and still as polished obsidian. And then, the passengers, the silent, wet statues, began to move. One by one, in perfect dreamlike unison, they stood up and began to walk, shuffling slowly towards the open doors. They're getting off. They're all getting off the train. They're walking towards the river. He's here, right next to me. The conductor. He's not looking at me anymore. He's just holding the door open. He's waiting for me. This is it. This is the last stop. Oh God, I don't want to go. I'm so scared. I just wanted to go home. I just fell asleep. Please, if anyone finds this, tell my mom I love her. Tell her I...
That was the final, corrupted segment of Clara's recording. The sound that followed was unrecoverable. The legend of the ferryman, the guide who transports souls to the underworld, is as old as stories themselves. It seems that in our modern age of steel and electricity, the ferryman has simply updated his vessel. He no longer waits for a coin. He waits for the tired, the exhausted, the traveler who misses their stop. He waits for you to choose to get on his train, but the final destination is always the same. The archives of the Midnight Society are now closed.